The silence before the storm. The Galactic Council's mistake. The Galactic Council had made many decisions in its 3,000 years of existence. Most were wise. Some were questionable. But the decision to ignore humanity's final warning would go down in history as the most catastrophic error ever recorded. Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering aliens around her. The council chamber was a marvel of engineering, a spherical room where gravity adjusted for each delegate's comfort. Some floated in gas clouds. Others perched on heated rocks. A few swam in transparent water tubes that wound through the air like glass serpents. For the third and final time, Chen said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion pulling at her, humanity requests that the Korthax Empire cease its attacks on our colony worlds. We have shown restraint. We have offered peaceful solutions. We have given you every opportunity to resolve this diplomatically. High Chancellor Vexthor of the Korthax leaned forward on his floating platform. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked with amusement. His species had ruled the Eastern Spiral Arm for 800 years. They were warriors, conquerors, and they viewed humans as soft creatures who hid behind words instead of fighting with honor. Little human, Vexthor's translated voice boomed through the chamber, your colonies occupy systems that belonged to the Korthax Empire long before your species discovered fire. We take back what is ours. If you cannot defend your settlements, perhaps you should not have built them in the first place. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. The Korthax were powerful, their military vast and experienced. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 70 years, barely a moment in cosmic time. Most species viewed them as children playing at civilization, useful for their trading networks and scientific innovations, but not to be taken seriously in matters of war. Chen's jaw tightened. She had been a diplomat for 23 years, long enough to recognize when words had lost their power. She had watched the recordings from the colony worlds. Seen the Korthax drop troops burn settlements, murder civilians, enslave survivors. She had listened to the screams of children, the pleas of parents, the final transmissions of defenders who fought with mining equipment because humanity's military doctrine forbade heavy weapons on peaceful colonies. Very well, Chen said quietly. Too quietly. Several delegates leaned forward, their translation devices struggling to pick up her words. Humanity hereby withdraws from all Galactic Council proceedings. Effective immediately, we invoke Article 7 of the Founding Charter. We sever all diplomatic relations. All treaties are void. All trade agreements are cancelled. The chamber erupted. Article 7 had never been invoked in the Council's entire history. It was the nuclear option of galactic politics, a complete withdrawal from civilized space. Species who invoked it declared themselves outside galactic law, outside galactic protection, outside the rules that governed interaction between worlds. You cannot be serious, Councillor Thren of the Aquilari said, his feathers ruffling with concern. The Aquilari had been humanity's closest allies, trading partners for decades. Chen, please, reconsider. Without the Council's protection, any species can attack Earth itself without consequences. We are aware, Chen replied. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device, placing it on the podium before her. This is humanity's final contribution to the Galactic Council. A complete record of our technology, our culture, our art, our science. Everything we have learned and created during our time among the stars. We gift it freely to any species who wishes to remember us. Remember you? Vexthor laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Where do you think you are going, little human? Chen looked directly at the Korthax High Chancellor. Her eyes, which had always been diplomatic, carefully neutral, now held something that made several nearby delegates instinctively move back. We are going silent, she said. When humans stop talking and start working, counselors, that is when you should worry. She turned and walked toward the exit. The massive doors, carved from a single piece of crystallized starlight, opened before her. As she stepped through, she paused and looked back one final time. The colonies you attacked, High Chancellor? Their populations totaled 42 million. Most were farmers, scientists, artists, and children. They wanted only to live in peace. Chen's voice remained calm, but something in her tone made the chamber fall completely silent. Humanity has 600 billion citizens. We have been building ships, training soldiers, and preparing for this day since your first attack. We hoped it would not come to this. We prayed for peace. But you have made your choice, and now we will make ours. Is that a threat? Dexthor demanded. No, Chen said simply. It is a promise. When next we meet, High Chancellor, bring everything you have. You will need it. The doors closed behind her with a boom that echoed through the chamber like a funeral drum. The Awakening. 3 weeks passed. The Galactic Council waited for humanity's response. They expected angry transmissions, perhaps some minor military action against Korthax outposts. What they got instead was silence. Every human ship vanished from trade routes overnight. Every human diplomat departed their posting without explanation. Every human scientist working on collaborative projects sent brief, polite messages terminating their involvement and returned home. It was as if humanity had decided to simply disappear. The Korthax Empire, emboldened by this apparent retreat, pushed forward. They attacked another human colony, an agricultural world called New Harvest. The defenders fought bravely with whatever they had, but without military support, the outcome was inevitable. The Korthax expected the usual pattern: conquest, occupation, integration into their empire. They did not expect what happened next. 18 hours after New Harvest fell, the Korthax war fleet station there simply stopped responding to communications. The High Chancellor assumed equipment failure or perhaps a particularly powerful solar storm disrupting transmissions. He sent a scout ship to investigate. The scout never returned. A second scout was dispatched with orders to maintain constant communication. The last transmission was brief and filled with static: something in orbit, ships everywhere, they're not showing on sensors. How are they not showing on, oh gods, they're right on top of us. Then silence. Dexthor ordered a full battle group to New Harvest. 12 warships, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, led by the Empire's finest admiral. The High Chancellor watched the live feed from the flagship's bridge, confident that whatever human tricks had destroyed his scouts would crumble before proper military might. The battle group exited faster than light travel at the edge of the New Harvest system. For 3 seconds, their sensors showed nothing unusual. Then the Admiral's tactical officer began screaming. Contacts. Thousands of contacts. They're everywhere, surrounding us, they were waiting. The feed showed space itself seeming to peel back like a curtain, revealing what had been hiding underneath. Ships. Human ships. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, each one bristling with weapons that had never been seen before, technology that shouldn't exist based on humanity's known capabilities. But what terrified the Korthax admiral most was the design. These were not exploration vessels retrofitted for war. These were not merchant ships with weapons bolted on as an afterthought. These were warships, pure and simple, built for one purpose: destruction. Sleek, black, covered in armor plating that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. They moved with predatory grace, cutting through space like sharks circling prey. "This is Admiral Jing of the Terran Defense Fleet," a voice said over all channels, calm and professional. "You have attacked our colonies. You have murdered our civilians. You have ignored our warnings and laughed at our peace offerings. The time for talk has ended. The time for mercy has passed. Surrender now, and you will be taken prisoner under the Terran Articles of War. Resist, and we will turn your ships into debris and your crews into memories. You have 30 seconds to decide." The Korthax admiral, who had fought in 100 battles and never known defeat, looked at his tactical display. 12 Korthax warships. 3,000 human vessels. The numbers were impossible. How had humanity built so many ships? How had they hidden them? How had they developed weapons technology that made his own ships look like primitive toys? He made the only choice that made sense. "We surrender," he said, his voice hollow with shock. "Wise decision," Admiral Zheng replied. "Your weapons will now be remotely disabled. Any attempt to resist will result in immediate destruction. You will be escorted to a prisoner facility where you will await trial for war crimes. Your government will be contacted regarding terms of surrender." "Surrender?" the admiral whispered. "The entire empire?" "Yes," Zheng said simply. "The entire empire. This is not a battle, Admiral. This is a demonstration. Your High Chancellor asked us to bring everything we had. Tell him we have barely started." The truth revealed. Back in the council chambers, 3 days after the New Harvest incident, the delegates gathered in emergency session. The Korthax had gone silent. Their military networks were dark. Their government building had transmitted one message before communication ceased, a formal surrender signed by High Chancellor Vexthor himself. Councillor Thren of the Aquilari stood before the assembly, his feathers pale with shock. "We have confirmed reports from multiple sources. Humanity has conquered the entire Korthax Empire in 72 hours. Not defeated. Not pushed back. Conquered. Completely. Every world now flies human flags. Every Korthax military installation is under human control. Every government official is either in custody or has sworn allegiance to Earth." Silence fell over the chamber like a heavy blanket. "How?" someone finally asked. "How is this possible?" The Korthax had the largest military in 3 sectors. They had 800 years of military tradition. Their fleets numbered in the tens of thousands. Humanity had more, Thren said quietly. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed ship construction facilities orbiting dozens of human worlds, massive structures that dwarfed anything the Council had ever seen. While we knew them as traders and scientists, while they smiled and negotiated and played by our rules, they were building. Every human world, every station, every settlement had manufacturing facilities hidden beneath the surface or disguised as something harmless. They have been preparing for war since they first joined the Council. But why? Another councillor demanded. If they had this power, why not use it? Why pretend to be weak? A new voice answered, human, calm, and utterly cold. Ambassador Chen walked back into the chamber through doors that opened without anyone summoning them. She looked exactly as she had 3 weeks ago, but something had changed. The diplomatic mask was gone. What remained was harder, sharper, more dangerous. "Because we remember our own history," Chen said. "We remember what happened when humans fought humans. The wars that killed billions. The weapons that poisoned entire continents. The hatred that burned across our world for thousands of years. We learned, counselors. We learned that the strong have a responsibility to the weak. We learned that power without wisdom leads only to destruction. We learned to choose peace whenever possible." She walked to the center of the chamber, and delegates unconsciously moved back, creating a circle around her. "But we also learned," Chen continued, "that peace only works when all parties want it. That sometimes, restraint is mistaken for weakness. That occasionally, the only way to stop a bully is to hit back harder than they can imagine. The Korthax thought us soft because we chose diplomacy first. They mistook our patience for cowardice. They believed our reluctance to fight meant we couldn't fight." Chen's smile was terrifying in its gentleness. They were wrong. The new order. The occupation. The Korthax capital world of Vrex Prime had never fallen to an enemy in its 1200-year history. The planet's orbital defenses were legendary, layer upon layer of weapons platforms, shield generators, and automated defense systems that had turned back 3 separate invasion attempts over the centuries. It was supposed to be impregnable, a fortress world that symbolized Korthax power and pride. It fell in 45 minutes. Admiral Zheng stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Unstoppable Resolution, watching as the last Korthax defense stations powered down their weapons. The orbital battle had been over almost before it began. Human ships had appeared everywhere at once, overwhelming sensor systems, bypassing shields with technology the Korthax didn't know existed, and systematically dismantling 8 centuries of military infrastructure with clinical precision. All defense platforms secured, his tactical officer reported. Ground forces are encountering minimal resistance. The planetary government has requested a ceasefire. Grant it, Zheng ordered. Begin relief operations immediately. I want food, medical supplies, and reconstruction equipment flowing to civilian centers within the hour. Any Korthax who wants to leave the planet may do so. Any who choose to stay will be treated according to the Terran Articles of War. His communications officer looked up, surprise clear on her face. Sir, the Articles guarantee protection of civilian populations, property rights, and local governance structures. We're treating them as if they were our own citizens. They will be, Zheng said quietly, if we do this right. The Korthax Empire dies today. What rises from its ashes depends on how we handle the next few weeks. We can be conquerors, or we can be liberators. I know which one humanity chose to be. Down on Vrex Prime's surface, Korthax civilians emerged cautiously from their homes to find human soldiers distributing food packages and medical supplies. The soldiers were polite, professional, and heavily armed, but they smiled at children and helped elderly Korthax navigate rubble-filled streets. They set up field hospitals and began treating wounded without asking if the injuries came from combat or accidents. It was not what anyone had expected from an occupying force. High Chancellor Vexthor sat in his palace, now a prison, watching reports flood in from across his former empire. The same pattern repeated on every world: swift military action, immediate humanitarian aid, respect for civilian populations. Human commanders met with local leaders, offered positions in transitional governments, promised fair treatment under Earth's justice system. You planned this, Vexthor said when Ambassador Chen arrived for their scheduled meeting. The massive insectoid looked diminished somehow, his carapace dull, his mandibles still. Not just the military campaign. Everything. The occupation, the reconstruction, the integration. You planned all of it. Yes, Chen said simply. She sat across from him, a small human woman facing a creature 3 times her size, and somehow she was the one who seemed larger. We studied every successful occupation and every failed one throughout galactic history. We learned from the Aquilari's peaceful integration of the Threxan colonies. We studied the disastrous Melkur conquests that created the resistance wars. We analyzed 14,000 years of galactic history to understand one simple truth: you can win a war with weapons, but you win the peace with compassion. Compassion, Vexthor repeated, the word strange in his translated voice. You destroyed my fleet, conquered my worlds, and imprisoned my government. Where is the compassion in that? The compassion, Chen said firmly, is that we stopped. We could have turned your worlds to glass. We could have exterminated your species as you planned to enslave ours. We had the weapons, the technology, the capability. Instead, we chose to dismantle your military while preserving your civilization. Your people will not starve. Your culture will not be erased. Your species will continue. They will simply do so under a government that doesn't murder civilians on colony worlds. Vexthor was silent for a long moment. What happens to me? You will stand trial for war crimes. The evidence is substantial, the verdict likely guilty. But the trial will be fair, conducted under rules agreed upon by neutral parties. If convicted, you will serve your sentence in a facility designed for your species' needs. You will not be tortured, humiliated, or executed. You will simply be removed from power so you cannot harm anyone else. And my empire? Will become a provisional territory of the Terran Federation until such time as your people can establish a stable, peaceful government of their own choosing. We estimate 20 to 30 years, depending on how quickly democratic institutions can take root. Chen leaned forward. We don't want to rule you, Chancellor. We want to ensure you can never do to anyone else what you did to our colonies. The Council's response. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, representatives gathered for the first full session since humanity's conquest of the Korthax Empire. The mood was tense. Several species had tried to condemn humanity's actions, calling it unprovoked aggression and demanding sanctions. Others argued that the Korthax had started the conflict and humanity had merely defended itself. Ambassador Chen stood before them once more, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from 47 human worlds, a silent reminder of the size and diversity of the Terran Federation. Around the chamber's perimeter, holographic displays showed human ships, not threateningly, but simply present, a reminder that humanity could reach any council world within hours if needed. The Galactic Council, Chen began, faces a choice. You can view humanity as a threat, an aggressive species that must be contained. You can try to build alliances against us, prepare for war, treat us as enemies. If you choose that path, I promise you will regret it. Not because we will attack, but because you will have made the wrong choice. She gestured to the holographic displays. Or you can recognize that humanity has demonstrated two things in the past 3 weeks. First, that we possess the military capability to defeat any single member species of this council in direct conflict. And second, that we choose not to use that power except in defense of ourselves and others. The Korthax Empire attacked our colonies, Chen continued. They murdered millions. They ignored our warnings, laughed at our attempts at peace, and believed us too weak to respond. We proved them wrong. But we did not exterminate them. We did not enslave them. We stopped their military, removed their aggressive government, and are now helping their civilian population rebuild and establish a peaceful society. Ask yourselves, counselors, what would your species have done in our position? The chamber remained silent. Chen let that silence stretch, let them think about their own histories, their own wars, their own choices when faced with existential threats. Humanity requests reinstatement to the Galactic Council, Chen said finally. Not as the weak species you dismissed, but as a full partner in maintaining galactic peace. We propose several amendments to the founding charter. First, that aggressive warfare against civilian populations be recognized as a crime punishable by military intervention. Second, that council member species be required to maintain transparent military capabilities to prevent future surprises. And third, that a permanent peacekeeping force be established, drawn from volunteer troops from all species, to respond to threats against any council world. Councillor Thren was the first to speak. You want to create a galactic military force? I want to prevent another Korthax situation, Chen replied. Your species, Councillor Thren, has been our ally and friend. But what happens if tomorrow, a species more powerful than the Korthax decides to attack your worlds? Who stops them? Currently, the answer is no one, unless they violate some obscure trade regulation. I propose we change that. I propose we agree, collectively, that some actions are unacceptable regardless of who commits them, and that we will work together to stop them. And if we refuse, someone asked. What does humanity do then? Chen's expression hardened. Then humanity continues alone. We will maintain our military, protect our interests, and offer assistance to any species that requests it. But make no mistake, counselors, we will not return to being the convenient friends who smile while our people are murdered. We gave peace every chance. We tried diplomacy first. We followed your rules until following them became suicide. Never again. The vote. The debate lasted for 3 days. Behind closed doors, in private chambers and secret meetings, council members argued, negotiated, and calculated. Some species saw opportunity in humanity's proposal, a chance to reshape galactic politics. Others saw threat, a dangerous precedent that could lead to tyranny. Still others simply tried to determine which side would benefit them most. On the morning of the 4th day, the vote was called. The question before the council, Councillor Thren announced, his role as session chairman requiring neutrality despite his personal feelings, is whether to accept humanity's petition for reinstatement and to consider the proposed charter amendments. This requires a 2/3 majority to pass. Council members, cast your votes. The voting display lit up, showing each species' decision in real time. Green for yes, red for no, yellow for abstention. The colors flickered and changed as delegates made their choices. Green, Aquilari, first to vote, standing with their friends. Green, the Laxians, whose merchant fleets had profited from human trade. Red, Gorvex, who had always viewed humans with suspicion. Green, Melkari, yellow, Vreshnak. The votes accumulated. 24, 8 against, 4 abstentions. 34, 12 against, 5 abstentions. The two-thirds threshold required 32 votes from the 47-member species. Chen watched without expression as the numbers climbed. She had done everything she could, said everything that needed saying. Now the galaxy would decide if it wanted humanity as a partner or an outsider. Green, 31st vote. The chamber held its collective breath. Green, 32nd vote. The measure passed. Barely, but it passed. Thren struck the ceremonial chime that signaled the end of voting. By a vote of 32 to 13, with 2 abstentions, the Council accepts humanity's petition for reinstatement and agrees to consider the proposed charter amendments. Ambassador Chen, welcome back. The chamber erupted in noise, some celebrating, others protesting, all realizing that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer the junior partner, the convenient ally, the species to be dismissed. They were now a power player, backed by military might and moral authority earned through restraint. Chen bowed slightly to the assembly. Thank you, counselors. I promise that humanity will honor the trust you have placed in us. We will work with all species who want peace, defend any who face aggression, and build a galaxy where disputes are settled with words before weapons. But make no mistake, we will never again be unprepared for war. We will never again stand by while others suffer. We will be the friends you hope for and the enemies you fear, depending entirely on the choices you make. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and High Chancellor Vexthor asked me to deliver a message to the Council. He said, never mistake patience for weakness. Never confuse diplomacy for cowardice. And never, ever make humans go silent. Because when they stop talking, that is when they start working, and by then, it is already too late. The legacy. 5 years later, Ambassador Chen stood in the same council chamber, but much had changed. The Galactic Council now numbered 51 species, 4 new members having joined under the revised charter. The Korthax Provisional Territory was in its 3rd year of democratic reforms, and early polling suggested the population would vote to join the Terran Federation as an autonomous member state. The peacekeeping force humanity had proposed, now called the Galactic Defense Initiative, had successfully prevented 3 regional conflicts from escalating into wars. Ships and soldiers from 30 different species worked together, proving that cooperation was possible even between former enemies. And humanity? Humanity continued to build ships, train soldiers, and prepare for threats both known and unknown. But they also built hospitals, schools, and trade stations. They shared technology freely, taught defensive tactics to species who requested them, and worked tirelessly to prove that military power and moral purpose could coexist. Chen looked out at the assembled delegates, many of whom had voted against humanity's reinstatement 5 years ago but now worked alongside human diplomats on various initiatives. She thought about the colonies that had burned, the millions who had died, the price paid for the galaxy to learn one simple truth. Humans preferred peace, but never mistake preference for inability. The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen, Thren said, interrupting her thoughts. You have the floor. Chen smiled, the genuine warmth returning to her expression after years of diplomatic coldness. Thank you, Counselor. Today, I bring good news. The Terran Federation is proud to announce the establishment of the Galactic Humanitarian Fund, an initiative funded by humanity and open to all species. Its purpose is simple: to provide disaster relief, medical assistance, and reconstruction aid to any world in need, regardless of political affiliation or council membership. She activated a holographic display showing the fund's resources. The numbers were staggering, proof of humanity's economic power and their commitment to using it for good. We learned a hard lesson, counselors, Chen said softly. We learned that sometimes you must show your strength before others will listen to your words of peace. We showed our strength. Now, let us show our compassion. Let us prove that the species who conquered an empire in 72 hours can also heal wounds, rebuild homes, and create a galaxy where war becomes the exception rather than the rule. Humanity, she concluded, is no longer silent. We are here, we are strong, and we are committed to using that strength in service of peace. Not because we must, but because we choose to. That, counselors, is what makes us dangerous. Not our weapons or our ships or our technology, but our choice to be better than our worst impulses. The council chamber erupted in applause, genuine this time, not the polite acknowledgement of diplomatic necessity but real appreciation for hope offered and promises kept. Ambassador Chen bowed to the assembly and walked back to her seat, where representatives from a dozen species wanted to discuss the humanitarian fund, propose joint initiatives, and explore new partnerships. She had spent 5 years rebuilding humanity's reputation, proving that they were worthy of the trust placed in them. As she shook hands, or equivalents, and smiled at colleagues, or tried to with species whose expressions she still struggled to read, Chen remembered standing in this same chamber 5 years ago, delivering humanity's ultimatum with a cold fury born of grief and determination. They had gone silent then. The entire galaxy had learned to fear that silence. Now, they were speaking again. Offering friendship, aid, and partnership to any who wanted it. But every species in the council knew, even if they never spoke it aloud, that if humanity ever went silent again, it would mean something had gone terribly, catastrophically wrong. And no one wanted to find out what humans could do when they stopped talking the second time.